Hey guys, welcome back to Click Academics. In today's video, I'm going to be teaching you guys the basics of imaginary and complex numbers. So imaginary numbers are based around the letter I. And I is known as an imaginary unit. Imaginary unit. So I is an imaginary number, and what I equals to the square root of -1. And I know many of you out there have probably been taught that you can't find the square root of negative numbers. The square root of negative numbers don't exist. And that is actually false, because the square root of negative numbers, those are known as imaginary numbers. So you actually can take the square root of negative numbers. However, they don't really have a tangible value. So now that we know that I here, our imaginary number / unit, is equal to the square root of -1, this also means that I squared, I to the power of 2, this is going to equal -1. And I know you guys have also been taught that you can't square a number, and the square root of any number squared or to the power of any positive number can't equal a negative number. And that is also false, because we have I here. And imaginary numbers have only recently been discovered in like the past 400, 500 years, I want to say. Don't take my word for that, but they have only been recently discovered. So this is a fairly new topic to mathematics. But yeah, so now that we know that I equals the square root of -1 and I squared equals -1, we also know that I to the power of 3, this is going to equal I squared times I. In other words, -1 times I. And this is simply equal to -I. So I to the power of 3 is -I. And I to the power of 4, this is going to equal I squared times I squared, meaning -1 times -1. And this means that this equals +1. And now that we know these four values, any power of I is going to equal one of these four values. So any power of I is either equal simply I, -1, -I, or 1. Those are the four values that a power of I can be. And we don't write the square of -1, we just write I. We write I instead of the square of -1. So don't write the square of -1. Whenever you have that, just write I in place of that. So now let's try to figure out what I to the power of 7 is. Well, we know that I to the power of 4, we know that this is equal to 1. And we're going to multiply this with, we know that I to the power of 3 equals -I. So this means that I to the power of 7, this is going to equal -I. Because remember, I to the power of 4 times I to the power of 3, we're going to add the exponent so that equals I to the power of 7. So I to the power of 7 is -I. Now let's try another one. Let's try I to the power of 8. And this equals I to the power of 4 times I to the power of 4, meaning 1 times 1. And this is simply equal to 1. So I to the power of 8 is 1. Now, what about I to the power of 9? Well, we're actually going to have to multiply 3 of these, at least 3 of these, to get this number, because the highest exponent we have is 4, and 4 plus 4 is 8. So that's less than 9. So we're going to have to do 4 plus 4 plus 1, meaning I times I to the power 4 times I to the power 4 times I. And this is simply just a fairly small number. If we get to a power of I like I to the power 56, that would take a while to calculate. And to calculate this, we actually have a trick. We have a trick, and I'm going to be telling you guys the trick in my next video on how to calculate powers of I, an easy method to calculating powers of I. So for now, to solve for I to the power of 9, we're going to do I to the power 4 times I to the power 4 times I. And I to the power 4 is 1, times I to the power 4 is 1, times I. And this is simply equal to I. So I to the power of 9 is I. And that's the basics of imaginary numbers. So I hope to see you guys in the next video.